podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast, home of the world champions, Chelsea. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the Blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes.
The full-time score, Chelsea 3, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0. And a game that was a bit strange, really. I quite enjoyed it for the most part. I thought that we came out of the blocks very, very well, very sharp. Our passing was on point. We were getting behind balls quite a lot in the first 10 to 15 minutes and creating lots of chances, actually. And on the balance of play in the first half, 11 shots to 0. We had pretty much 70% of the ball, lots of crosses, lots of penetration. But sort of after that 20-minute period, we did seem to drop off and we went back to our usual ways of huff and puff. And it sounds really silly, but it stemmed even from our own corners. We would take a corner and we'd end up our own goalkeeper without getting the ball into the box, which was just really, really disappointing. But I don't think that's a true reflection on the entire game. It's just a period that Chelsea find themselves in where these teams that come and sit and play with a low block, eventually they just frustrate Chelsea to the point at which they just lose their heads, and then we do something mad like leave nobody back from a corner, or we get a red card or something daft. But tonight we did manage to get that goal in the second half, and it did send us on our way. And obviously the person that you knew that was going to get it, he's always been the player that we wanted to get the ball in that area, which was Malo Gusto. He's absolutely deadly from a yard, and yeah, his 98th game for Chelsea, he's finally scored a goal. I think that's his first career goal ever. So yeah, we were always expecting it was going to be him. But yeah, joking aside, I think Garnacho was a real handful all night in the first half as well as the second half, and it was him that delivered the ball for Gusto to nod in from a yard. And to be fair to Gusto, I actually think he had a good game. And before I carry on the note, I just want to sort of say about him, I think over the last few weeks he's had a bit of a resurgence in terms of how to play this inverted fullback role. We've seen Kukurea do it pretty much from day one under Enzo Maresca, but Gusto's always struggled to find the right balance between going into midfield and being a fullback. And I've noticed in the last couple of games that he's played, he's actually been very, very useful in there. And on the ball, as we saw, for example, against Liverpool, he played in midfield that day, didn't necessarily play as a fullback, but he does seem to be getting a lot more comfortable in that role. And to be fair to him, credit where it's due, he's not my favourite player, but he is growing on me. And I think he has had some games where I thought, you know what?
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
You're actually a useful part of the team now. So pleased for him to score his first goal for the club. Obviously, that's always a nice thing to do for anybody. And Chelsea really milked that, which was nice. And the players also obviously think a lot of him because they went over to celebrate quite heavily with him, and even heard, I think it was Kukurea shout, "At last," or "finally," or something like that. So yeah, fair play to him. And then the introduction of Estevão Willian, who the player that Chris and I have been begging to be starting for Chelsea for some time in the Premier League. Still didn't start tonight, but he came on after, I think it was 62 minutes, and within about 2 minutes he already forced a corner, and then with his next attack put the cross in for João Pedro to slam home to make it 2-0. And then again a blistering run from Garnacho for the third, completely stripping the fullback, and a very unselfish play. Neto, who I thought had been, I'll be honest, one of our worst players on the night. I thought he had a very poor game, and was in the right place at the right time. Had a decent run, to be fair to him, and he finished it off with his right foot. But all that magic came from Garnacho. And to be fair to him, if the rumours are true about him doing extra training and coming on his days off to work and improve on his crossing and finishing, then yeah, he gets a lot of respect from me. He clearly wants to make a name for himself at Chelsea, and he clearly wants it. And that is a trait in a Chelsea player that anybody would want. So yeah, I think that he is showing those signs that he's going to nail down that left wing position basically for himself with performances like that. I think we should caveat the fact that it is Wolves at home, and Wolves haven't won a Premier League game this season, so he'll have stiffer tests to come. But even in a team like Wolves, who came and pretty much sat back and didn't really offer anything going forward, they are hard to break down. So yeah, I thought his general all-round play was very good, and he even made a few more crosses that didn't end up in goals, but on another night they might have done. Special mention to Enzo Fernandez. I thought he was outstanding. His passing tonight was incredible and broke up a lot of the play. He seemed to have a lot of interceptions, tackles, helping Caicedo in there, who didn't have to do it all on his own tonight. Who I thought Caicedo was really, really good and equally quite boneheaded at times, snapping away like he always does, nicking the ball high, play some lovely passes. He's a world-class player. But there are times with him where you just think he just gets the hump. And he was getting needled, and I wonder if that Andre Gomez was getting in his ear, the South America connection. I don't know, but he seemed to want to kick him and punch him and push him over quite a lot tonight. And he did give away a couple of really needless free kicks, but Enzo and Caicedo in the midfield there were superb tonight. And talking of boneheaded decisions, I thought Fofana, who had a good game up until the sort of moments through the second half, he just started going around kicking people and pushing people over, just very unnecessary. And at one time he gave a free kick right on the edge, and then towards the end of the game, he pushes the Wolves player into Chalobah, and the referee gave a foul to Chelsea, which I thought was incredible. And that would have also been a free kick right on the edge. So he just plays in a way that makes you just want to laugh. And I was having a chat with a friend of mine, and he said he just needs a season or two alongside someone like a John Terry or a Thiago Silva. And I jokingly said, well, I can offer you Tosin or Disasi, to which he burst out laughing. Yeah, Fofana's going to have to learn off himself the way it's going, because we don't have any experienced centre-halves alongside him, apart from maybe Trev Chalobah, because Tosin's not going to teach him very much. But yeah, I think Chelsea as a whole tonight were very, very good. There was a lot of good displays. I think Cucurella was another one that's worth mentioning, because he was everywhere again. Defensively fantastic, and he covers every blade of grass. So yeah, nothing but respect for him. Didn't get his usual sort of penetrating balls in behind tonight from that central role in midfield, but yeah, he was just a good player all round. He never gave them a moment's peace at the back. He was niggling, and like he always does. But yeah, generally speaking, I was very, very impressed with him. And I gave Fofana a bit of stick there, but generally speaking, the two centre halves are very good. I thought Trev had a good game tonight, and I think the only one really who comes away with not a lot of credit, but because he scored, he's probably going to go unnoticed. I thought Neto was dreadful. But in the first half, his crossing, his decision making was slow. We had a chance to get the ball in the box a couple of times early from counter attacks, but we just didn't do it. And he held the ball up, let them all get back, and then we passed it backwards and sideways again, which was a real sort of theme of the first half after the first 20 minutes, which was driving me insane. But yeah, I think Neto overall had a poor game. He wasn't for me. I was hoping he was going to come off, and then obviously inevitably he scores the third goal, and it kind of makes him look like a world beater. But tonight, yeah, he really should have been hooked, in my opinion. Delap was okay in spells. I felt like he went down a bit easy looking for fouls at times, which is annoying me a bit. But overall, he was fairly good. I think he just needs minutes under his belt at the moment. But again, a goal or two would be nice to get him. I think just that pressure off your back of not scoring yet, even though he's been injured for most of the season. I think he just needs a goal just to sort of settle himself. João Pedro had a mixed night. Again, he did some good things, some poor things. Obviously took his goal very well. I think he passes the buck a little bit. There was a couple of times where he could have taken the shot himself and he tried to pass. And I thought, why are you doing that? It was easier to score than make that pass. But he wins free kicks, but also he does go down a bit like Delap. He goes down a bit easy for a man of his size, and again looks for fouls, and it does put us on the back foot when he goes rolling over it, which is a bit disappointing. But overall, probably a 7 out of 10 for João Pedro tonight. He had an okay game. I wouldn't say it was absolutely fantastic, but he scored a goal, and he was sort of generally involved in a lot of what we did that was good. So I think there's a lot more to come from him, but I think he is certainly in the last couple of weeks looked a bit better. I think I just have to say, I do like Chelsea when they're playing the counter-attack. I know we're a ball possession team. We like to sort of pass, and away from home, that's quite nice, because if you're playing against a team like Spurs, say last week, they will come at you, and so passing around them becomes a lot easier. These teams that come to the bridge and sit in these low blocks, block of 5 and another block of 5 or whatever, it's very frustrating when you're watching Chelsea, because you almost want them to come out, sort of, rope-a-dope thing, get them to come out and do what Garnacho did on the counter-attack, because I think Chelsea have got players, Neto, Garnacho, Estevão, they would kill teams on the counter-attack. And I think just sometimes, Maresca could just do with making that decision just to swap it and just change it for a couple of weeks and see how it goes, because the ball position thing is great and we do pass it around very nicely, but a lot of the time we do go nowhere with it. And there was a lot of sideways passing in the first half, particularly. A lot of our corners tonight, I think I counted at least 3 occasions we took a corner and it ended up at Rob Sanchez's feet, which I think is mind-blowingly dim-witted, particularly when you've seen how many goals have been scored from long throws and corners this season already. That feeling of putting the ball in the box and giving the goalkeeper and the defenders something to think about is very, very important. But yeah, I think that the counter-attack point is that, for me, is that I would like us to do that a bit more often. Hasn't got to be all the time and every minute of the game, but I think for spells in games, it'd be nice to kind of just say, do you know what, let them come out a bit, let's suck them out a little bit, and then we're going to go behind with a long ball. A bit like we did against PSG in that World Club Cup, etc., etc., etc. Said it all before, but I think we must do that as an option, because it really, really works for Chelsea, and we have the players on tap to do that. So it'd be interesting to see how we go about our business in the next couple of weeks, because we have international break now. And I think, forgive me, is it Arsenal and then Barcelona, or Barcelona and then Arsenal? It must be Arsenal first and then Barcelona in the Champions League after that midweek. So we have a couple of very, very tough games coming up. But yeah, we currently sit second in the league. I think if we'd had some slightly better luck, or maybe some better performances in some games leading up to this point, we might have been even closer to Arsenal. But yeah, difficult to sort of complain when your team's sitting second, but I just think there's so much potential in the Chelsea team, and it's still untapped at the moment. And yeah, maybe there's signs of a recovery in terms of getting the season back on track. But again, I would just like to see us be a bit more consistent, and these teams that come and sit at the bridge and do absolutely bugger all and go away with a point or 3 points, that's got to be a thing of the past. We have to start killing games off early when we can to get these teams to come out and leave that space in behind for us to attack. So yeah, all in all, I think at one point at half-time I was thinking, is this going to be another frustrating Sunderland game? As it turns out, it's been a very comfortable night in the end. We could have had 1 or 2 more, but I'm not going to be greedy, accept the 3 points, accept the 3 goals, and we go into the international break with at least a decent run of form and a huge game waiting for us on the return.
That was a pretty grown-up performance again, wasn't it? I'm going to use the word grown-up again. It's what I said after the Spurs game. It's what we named the pod. And yeah, all in all, I often say there's very few comfortable Premier League games these days that you can just sit back and enjoy. And actually, I felt for the last half an hour of that game, you pretty much could. It's Sunday, by the way, now. If you can hear noise in the background, it is because I'm in a kids' playground with my 5-year-old Frankie. But yeah, with a smile on my face. I thought that was good. I actually thought that in the first half we played all right. I think you said that as well, Joe. There were a few smatterings of boos around the bridge on the half-time whistle, which actually I thought was a little bit strange. There was definitely parts of the performance that were probably a little bit frustrating. I mean, the corner thing was laughable, wasn't it? You're right, Joe. I haven't. Number of times you're just thinking, what are we doing? But actually, generally, we were knocking on the door, getting into all the right positions, and everything was good apart from the sort of final ball, the final touch around the box. And you did have that feeling like, it could go wrong if we concede first here, but it certainly didn't feel to me worth the boos. And it's a shame, really. I mean, we've talked a little bit about the atmosphere at the bridge at the moment. There are a number of reasons why it's not as good as it has been, and it's up and down. It has its moments, without a doubt. But yeah, that was a bit of a shame. And obviously, it was all about getting that first goal. And yeah, Malo Gusto, what a moment for him. It was lovely to see how much it meant to the players. And not only has he never scored a goal in his career, never scored a goal for Chelsea. Let's be honest, he's never even looked close to getting one. I mean, every time he winds up to have a shot, you're screaming at the screens, shouting, no, please don't. And so it was always going to be just something like hitting his head for about a yard out to get him off the mark. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe it's played in his mind more than we know, and that will help him a little bit in terms of getting into those shooting positions. Maybe he'll be a bit calmer in front of goal. I'm definitely not banking on that, though, I have to say. Until he starts smashing a few shots in with his feet, maybe then I'll believe that is possible. But no, really pleased for him, and I think you're right, Joe. He has his moments, doesn't he? He's clearly a good footballer. He's technically a really good footballer. I think if we were to put him on the market, there would be plenty of top teams who would be interested in him. I think sometimes the way that we play with fullbacks doesn't always suit him, but yeah, he's a good player. He obviously is very trusted by Maresca, and yeah, I think there's been enough good performances in the last few months to make you think, yeah, they've got the balance right somehow there, with obviously Reece as well. And I think the big thing has always been with Reece, and it was for a couple of seasons, just having another option, so you're not putting so much pressure on him to play every game. And this was almost the best example, wasn't it, with Reece having played 290 minutes in the week and then finally getting the chance to have most of the night off, which was really good. I want to put a special word in for Garnacho, who I thought was man of the match of the night and was brilliant. Obviously a huge part of two of the goals that Chelsea scored, but just generally our best attacking player on the night. The thing about Garnacho is, and the first thing I said about him is it's going to take a little while, I think, for me to warm to love him in a Chelsea shirt. I always get used to seeing him in a Chelsea shirt. I can't remember the last time we signed a player where it just felt weird seeing him in a Chelsea shirt. I'm not quite sure why, because it's not like he'd been at Man United for 10 years. And it was just, I don't know, it just, maybe I'm alone in this, it just felt weird. It felt weird going out to Chelsea. But firstly, I absolutely love the stories that have come out about training and the fact he's doing extras after training. I mean, the king of that was Frank Lampard, and we can see what Chelsea career he had, not comparing the two, but it's something that he's talked about himself, Lampard, when he was at Chelsea, that as a manager, that just not enough players are doing that, just doing those extra afters after training, free kicks, crosses, finishings. Great to see Gunn actually doing that. And I thought you saw moments of that in his performance yesterday, particularly in the third goal, which might seem a weird one to focus on because it was a fairly straightforward goal. But how many times have we seen Chelsea muck up situations like that? I think we obviously had one against Sunderland, which was damning. But those sort of situations where you go through the great Man City teams and Liverpool teams of old, just always so clinical, get the goal. You know, how many tap-ins has Salah had like that, or given Mane to tap in similarly? And I thought it was brilliant, just the way it was so clinical. There you go, 3-0, game over, job done. And I loved seeing it. It was just really good from Garnacho. He's a player who is quietly effective in a really, I'm trying to think the right word for this, in a really ugly way. It's not always particularly smooth or slick or beautiful what he does. If you compare him to Estevão, where every touch is like velvet touch, isn't it? It's like silky, goes either side. With Garnacho, it doesn't feel like that, but it's incredibly effective. He's not a lot of people talk about him. He's very good on either foot. He's very happy to go left or right foot. He's a right-footed player, but you look at his goal in midweek at Karabag, it was a good left foot strike across goal. The cross for Pedro Neto, which I just talked about, again on his left foot. So he's very good going either side, which makes him just more difficult to play against. I mean, how many players have we seen in recent years at Chelsea who are almost infuriating because they only want to play on one foot? So as a winger, you know exactly what he's going to do. Hello, Nonny. So I thought that's one part of his game that is really impressive. And he's just effective. He's just quietly effective. He just makes things happen. And I think there were so many Man United fans, I've talked to Spurs a little bit before, who were disappointed that they let him go to Chelsea, I think, more than anything. And certainly the price that they let him go to Chelsea. Because I just think they knew that he would be a really effective player for us, and I think that's what we're starting to see, and certainly saw that yesterday. And he's kind of quietly making that left wing position his own. I'm going to be less kind to Liam Delap, actually. I'm going to be a bit harsher than you were, Joe. I thought he was crap, to be honest. A really disappointing performance. He had an hour. He had 15 touches in the whole game, only one of which was in the box. Now, part of that is game state and not enough space behind and all the kind of things that we know that he does enjoy. But what I thought was a bit damning was the number of balls that Chelsea put in the box, particularly in the first half, that were just crying out for a centre forward to be in and around it to get on the end of it. Really dangerous balls constantly coming in. We had no one there. And I'm like, that's your job. That's your job, Liam, to just be getting on the end of these things, being a bit more of a nuisance. And I just thought he wasn't great. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know it's his first proper game back for a while. He's only just getting back up to speed. I think he could be a really good player for Chelsea. I've got very, very high hopes for him. And I think he could end up being a really smart signing as well in terms of what he gives us in the squad. I think he's so different to João Pedro that I'm sure the intention was Cole Palmer plays number 10, and then there's a rotation between João Pedro and Delap within games, across different games. Sometimes they play together, and I think it's a really lovely balance when we have Palmer back. And obviously Palmer and Delap, we know, have a really good link up as well. So I think, don't get me wrong, I think he'll be great, but I just thought he was crap. I thought yesterday and just didn't do much. He just frustrated me with his performance generally. And then who else do I talk about? Let me talk about the centre-backs as well. Just because I talked after the Carabao game, when all of the chat was about rotation, that I wanted to see Maresca pick a pairing and stick with them for a run of Premier League and Champions League games. I watched a bit of the Arsenal game and I just caught a bit there first half and just saw the team, and you just like, well, it's always Gabriel and Saliba. They had been on that incredible run, obviously, of not conceding goals until yesterday, which was great, wasn't it? But I thought, this is like the classic Chelsea teams of old, where you know the back four and goalkeeper. You don't even have to look at the team sheet. You know what it's going to be. And I do think that Maresca has to make a call there and give them a run of games, and maybe he has. That's obviously 2 Premier League games in a row that he started for Fofana and Trev. Both got 90 minutes, which was good. I don't think, as you said, Joe, I don't think it was flawless, certainly from Fofana. But you know what? 90 minutes, back-to-back clean sheets in the Premier League. We take that. And actually, if you look at the XG again, a lot was made of just how low Spurs' XG was against Chelsea last week. It was, with their Premier League record. I think Wolves had something like 0.07 yesterday. It was barely anything. We really didn't give them a kick. So maybe he's made that decision, and I really hope that's the case. We've got Burnley coming up next, then Arsenal. I'd love to see them, number one, stay fit, which is obviously a big issue for Fofana, but just to say, look, this is the centre-back pairing with the goalkeeper. We're just going to have a bit of continuity across these big games. Whether we see it or not, I don't know. The recent record suggests we're not going to see that, but I just think if that's his pick, go with it for a bit and let Josh Achimbon be the natural backup to Fofana when he needs a break or whatever it might be, or in the League Cup and stuff like that. His time will obviously come, but I think we need a bit of continuity there. And yeah, a positive night. Do I want to talk about Estevão? Of course I do, because I think he's an absolute joy. But I might talk about him a bit later, actually, in my second voice note. I'll do one later on him particularly, because I think the reaction he got at the bridge, the general feel about him is quite special, and I think it does worth talking about. And he didn't even necessarily have his best half an hour yesterday, but the fact that he came on immediately, got a goal, made a goal happen. I think you've got to sometimes as a fan just take the moment to appreciate what you have in front of you. I've definitely had that feeling the last couple of years with Cole Palmer, just thinking, wow, we're watching something special here. That sort of feeling I haven't had since Eden Hazard really at Chelsea. And the fact we now might have this time when we have Palmer and Estevão doing this together, it could be pretty special. But I'll talk about him a little bit later, and I'll hand back to Joe for his final thoughts. But yeah, a really good night for us. The league table it's mad, isn't it? But Bournemouth have just lost, which means we stay second for the time being. It's mad. They would have gone second and now down to 9th as the league table currently stands, which is just mental, really, with the way the league table is at this point of the season. But what I've really enjoyed is just the fact that Man City play Liverpool, obviously very shortly as I record, and I care about the result. I feel like we've got a little foot in it somehow, that it just matters. And when was the last time there was a big game like that just felt like you're just watching us on as a spectator in the top 4 talk or title race talk? It just sort of felt like, yeah, but it doesn't really matter to us. And maybe it matters to us. I don't know. I don't think we're going to win the league, don't get me wrong. But could we have a run at 2nd or 3rd this season? Maybe we could, and that would be just so much progress, and that's exactly what we were hoping for. So yeah, funny how things change. A couple of good wins after Sunderland. Things are looking better, and long may it continue.
Good evening on a very lovely Sunday afternoon. It's been glorious here in the suburbs of Surrey, I have to say. And very enjoyable morning's football, watching my son, and came home to a dearth of football. There was a Palace and Brighton, Villa, Bournemouth, and Newcastle, Brentford. You could watch all of those today, which was great. So I've been flicking between those. And some quite good games. Even the Palace Brighton game kept my attention more, even though it was 0-0. It was quite feisty and loads of pushing, shoving, and quite fun when it's other teams doing it. As for the rest of the football today, I've just been watching the Liverpool and Man City game, or Man City-Liverpool game, I should say. And Man City have gone 1-0 up, and Van Dijk has just equalised, but it's ruled out for offside. I can't listen. I've had to come out for a walk because I can't listen to Gary Neville anymore. He just talks utter shite. If he doesn't think that Andy Robinson isn't offside for their equalising goal, then he's absolutely mad. He's standing literally a yard in front of Donnarumma, almost on the goal line, to sort of prevent Donnarumma seeing that goal. And maybe he is slightly outside the line of the ball, but he is definitely interfering with play. Let's just say that he ducks at the last minute. So I just can't deal with Gary Neville. So I've had to come for a little walk like I did last week or 2 weeks ago now. But this time I'm in an all better mood. I really enjoyed that note, Chris. I have to say I did laugh out loud, as did my wife, when you just said, I slightly disagree with your opinion on Delap's performance yesterday, Joe. I thought it was crap. I have to say I very much enjoyed that. Yeah, I think I was trying to be kind. I think because of his injury that he's had, I'm thinking maybe he's not quite there yet. That's all. If I'm being brutally honest, and I didn't want to be too brutal yesterday, I kind of agree. He wasn't very good. I mean, and I stand by the fact that for a guy that is big, powerful, and I'm sure if you punched him, he wouldn't move, type of thing, he goes down far too easily. And now I know all players do it. So I'm just have been watching the Man City Liverpool game just now, like I said, and everybody's going down far too easy. In the Palace Brighton game earlier, they're all going down far too easy. So it's not just Delap and what have you, it's everybody. But I sort of, I know what you're saying about him. There was a lot of balls put into the box in the first half, and he wasn't on the end of any of them. I think there's an element to that sometimes it's right place, right time, and maybe the balls were just floating over his head, going short, just too long, whatever. I know what you're saying. If he'd got on the end of some of them and he was heading them wide or whatever, you'd feel a bit better because you're like, okay, he's missing those chances. But I think the ball actually wasn't really going to him, certainly from the crosses, but he needs to do an awful lot more, certainly with his hold-up play, bring others into the game, like he did against West Ham 2 weeks into the season when he was absolutely fantastic, and I'm pretty much unplayable on the night. But I stand by it. I think he's had an injury. It's kept him out all this time. He's at a brand new club. He's not used to our style of play, but he's not used to the players I would suggest quite like some of the others are, and the way we play and all the rest of it, and what he's been asked to do and lead the line on his own. So it is a bit daunting, and I think we kind of expect Delap to walk in the team and maybe not score every week, but be a big focal point, because other big forwards are doing the same thing across the league at the moment. But I think once he gets going, Because at Ipswich, he was very much like that. He was a steam train. You know, he was an absolute ball of a player. He would just steam through people. And I think that once he gets that feeling and sensation of a goal in a blue shirt, I think he will go from strength to strength. And let's not forget, we bloody well need him. So we need him to go from strength to strength. And he's got now a little bit of time over international duty to sort himself out, look at the tape with Maresca and his staff, find out what they really want of him, where he's going wrong, and hopefully they can rectify some of his mistakes. But fingers crossed, we may have Cole Palmer back after the international break. Now, I'm not going to suggest that he is going to come back because it's all hearsay at the moment, but the rumours are that they're sort of saving him for Barcelona and Arsenal. So I don't expect him to play against Burnley. You might see him on the bench if they want to give him just 10, 15 minutes at the end of the game to stretch his legs and see what he's got before those games, give him a little bit of match practice. So if he was to come back, he would be an absolute massive bonus in this team. I've been looking at the last few games, actually. Karabag being one, Sunderland being another, Spurs the other week. Oh, I think Palmer would have had a field day yesterday. Another great example against Wolves. I think he would have really done well in those games. So the fact that we've done reasonably well without him does speak volumes for where the team is at the moment. I would just say at this moment, if you do hear a few fireworks, I am walking around and it is bonfire weekend. So yeah, you may get a few snap, crackle and pops in the background. So yeah, they're for free for you. You haven't got to pay for those. Going back to Garnacho, I'm not going to comment too much on him because I think between the two of us, we covered him fairly well, Chris. Just something to add is that these are minor things. They don't really matter in the grand scheme of stuff. But, you know, the fact that he's prepared to go on Instagram and say, this is my club, I want to do well for my club. It is a nice feeling to have someone that does that. And I was speaking to a Man United fan today who I like very much, and he was telling me that they are gutted that he's left. Like they can't quite get used to him in a blue shirt. So I think that transfer probably has ruffled a few feathers. And as you've probably seen some of the stats today, not that it's a competition, but he's already got as many assists for Chelsea as Mason Mount has for Man United. So I'd say, again, Chelsea have done quite well in their recruitment there. And again, I think Chris and I were not that we were against the transfer. I think we may have said along the lines early on, or it was around Christmas time last year, when we were being linked with him, and he was being a bit of a problem for Man United, that we were a bit like, do we want this player in the team? We've got Nonny, we've got Jackson. They're both a bit irritable. They both can be a bit of a disruption and a distraction for some of the players and stuff. And I thought, do we need another one? Obviously, they're both out of the team now. I think he is going to be one of those players that's going to polarise people, because I don't love his attitude when he's brought off. And it's not because he's playing badly. I think it's purely because we have 4 or 5 wingers that they're trying to rotate. And I don't think they want us to leave Jamie Gittins, Estevão, Neto, for example, on the bench for weeks on end and bring them on for 10 minutes every 5 weeks. They're going to play almost every week. The one that is struggling at the moment is Jamie Gittins, and he's the one that you would expect to maybe miss out if he's not going to contribute too much, particularly if Garnacho is going to go on a good run of form and actually contribute to the team, and which, it's got to be said, Jamie Gittins hasn't done that yet. Obviously, like you said, Chris, that goal, that third goal yesterday was delightful, and I think you've actually underplayed it. I think the way that he goes past that player, it's 3 touches, and the 4th touch is the cross for Neto. I think it's class. Actually, I've watched them back today. I think his cross for Gusto as well, I think is wonderful. It's absolutely on a plate. And I was the one that was complaining for the last 2 or 3 weeks how we've been simply delivering the ball far too long over the forwards' heads, and the ball's been drifting out for goal kicks regularly. He put a couple of balls in yesterday that was sublime. Even in the first half, I thought his crosses were really, really good, and he can do it on both feet. And I kind of know what you mean about him with it looking a bit scruffy sometimes. I think it's just the way he plays. And you're right about Estevão. He is silky. Like, he's so smooth. But I do really think that both types of winger can be really, really effective in this Chelsea side. And if we can, like I say, if we can play with this counter-attack frame of mind now and again, I think Garnacho is going to be absolutely perfect for that. And actually, I did say a couple of weeks ago that I didn't think he was particularly quick, but he did absolutely roast the fullback yesterday. So maybe, again, he's just getting up to speed. That is always a possibility. So, yeah, pleased for him yesterday, really, really happy for him. And remember, he had superb numbers at Man United. They got better every single year. So let's just hope we've bought a slightly improved and hungry Garnacho, a player that's willing to go and push his numbers and hope to get them as high as possible this season. And that will guarantee Chelsea more goals, more assists, and generally more good all-round attacking play. So yeah, he's one I'm going to keep an eye on, and I think that he could be, actually, I think in the grand scheme of things, a very good signing. A bit like we had Cole Palmer when we signed him for 40 million from Man City 2 years ago. Everyone said that was a bit of a disaster signing. I think Garnacho was considered a little bit of a disaster signing, and they might be bloody brilliant. So let's keep an eye on those. As for what Chris said about Maresca, the atmosphere, the booing at half-time, I think it's inevitable. I think you get lots of boos at half-time amongst any ground, really. I think Chelsea have a problem because of our last result at home was the 2-1 loss to Sunderland. I think that's still fresh in the memory. It's difficult sometimes to get your head out of it. You just constantly think about, is this going to happen again? We saw this last time we played. We should have beaten Sunderland, or in theory, on paper, we should have beaten Sunderland, and you're playing Wolves and it's 0-0. They're bottom of the league. They haven't won a game. All that stuff comes into it. I think had we been playing Man United at home and it was 0-0 when you played like that, I don't think there would have been any jeers. It's just the fact that it's a game. They've got an interim manager who you've never heard of, and you just think, we should be doing better than this. But I think the performance was quite good, and we've said that, so I'm not going to go over those things. But as for Maresca and it being a grown-up performance, and Chris named the last show, or the one before this, the Spurs game, sort of grown-up performance, I think this, again, it had the hallmarks of that. I do believe, and I get frustrated, because I'm so desperate for Chelsea to go and win again. I think the hardest part for me has been watching us be in this decline since Roman left and not really showing any real signs of getting out of it. And if we're being honest, the decline was happening whilst Roman was there, but we were still picking up the odd trophy, the odd cup. What I would like Chelsea to do, and I'm sure every Chelsea fan wants them to do, is actually start picking up really good, consistent performances in the league. A bit like Arsenal have done, and they are on this progressive run now. Yes, they dropped 2 points last night when they were winning with about 2 or 3 minutes to go, but it's taken them 6 years to get to this point, and I'm hoping Chelsea can be a lot more fruitful than 6 years. But winning the league is the hardest thing to do in the world, and that is why it is so coveted. To win the Premier League is like mind-blowingly hard. So however you do it, whether it's with long throws, direct free kicks, pretty football, however you do it, it doesn't matter. If you're the best team come May, you pick the title up and you are considered the best team in the league. And I think that how Arsenal have developed their side over this time from being a really fluent, free-flowing football team to suddenly now, we're going to go. They still have moments of that, of course they do. They're not all just free kicks and set pieces, but a lot of their goals are scored from those things. And they have found a way to be physical, and actually their two centre halves muscle everybody out the way. If they don't score from the free kick or the corner, somebody else does because they've made a run or they've shoved someone out the way. So they have learnt to be physical, and they've learnt to be this team that isn't soft anymore. For years and years and years, Arsenal consider this really soft underbelly team. They go away to Bolton or they go away to Stoke, and often they get smashed to pieces because they couldn't deal with it. They had Thierry Henry and they had Bergkamp and they had all these fantastic players, but they just couldn't cope with it. Well, Arteta's completely turned that around. And even though I'm not a massive fan of Arteta as a coach, I don't like the way he acts on the touchline and stuff, he has built a team there now to be successful. And I think Chelsea aren't going to go down that road currently with what we see. They're not going to be a team that bully you out of the way for free kicks and corners and stuff. But I think what I'm seeing in Maresca, and I can be frustrated from week to week with him, not because of his personal things that he's doing on the touchline or the substitutions. It could just be that he mucks around with the team too much, perhaps. But he is a manager that is going to do that. He said against Karabakh that he's going to rotate the team quite regularly, and I've just got to get my head around that. I think sometimes I can be slightly old school the way I think and say, well, if Drogba, Lampard, Terry, Scholes, Beckham, Keane, Vieira, Perez can play 200 games for Arsenal, 200 games for Chelsea, 200 games for Man United and barely need to rest, then why can't everybody else? Maresca talks about the Premier League being the most physical it's ever been. Says that he was a player who was a very good player and that the demands on the players now are a lot more. Now look, if the facts back that up, then fair enough. I don't personally see that. But what I would say is the Premier League is definitely more athletic. So there's a stall of thought that suggests that maybe he could be correct about that. And obviously they've got all the data, they will know. But I still think that if you've got a big game midweek and a big game on Sunday or Saturday, that players should be able to play 2 games in a row. And the case in point, Matt, is Moises Caicedo. He never gets dropped. The only time he gets dropped is when he basically doesn't need to play. So last year, in the Europa Conference League, he was playing minimal minutes here and there because he didn't need to play until the final, basically. And then, obviously, this term, he didn't play against Karabakh, or wasn't supposed to play. Still played almost the whole game because of Lavi's injury. He plays every week. So, and by the way, he also plays in the most demanding position you can possibly play in central midfield. So, I can't have the fact that changing up the striker every single week or changing up 2 centre-backs every single week is a good thing. And Chris talks about keeping Chalobah and Fofana in there now for a few weeks and let's see how it goes. I completely agree, particularly the 2 centre-halves. They all work hard, but I don't care what anybody says. Centre-back is probably the least demanding position on the field. Maybe centre-forward on occasions because the ball is not up that end of the field all the time, but I think that they pass the ball a lot and the centre-halves now get the ball a lot from the goalkeeper and what have you, but in terms of their running, it is a less demanding position. And I think that it would be good to see a partnership form or try and form until we see the return of Levi Colwill. One plus point, which I'm going to call it a plus point, and I've not been overly friendly to this guy on the podcast, is Benoit Badiashile. He is due to return also quite soon, I believe. Maybe a little bit longer than Cole Palmer, but not much after that. And having that left-sided centre-half, particularly when he played against Liverpool the other day, I was very impressed with him. He looked like he'd grown a bit and maybe showed some character. So it'd be nice to see if he can come back and see what he can do. But equally, if Fofana and Trev are playing very, very well, or if it turns out to be Fofana, Ratchampong, whoever it might be, I would like to see 2 players come in and be solid for a number of weeks to see if that can push us up the table and keep more and more clean sheets. We've had 2 in a row now, which is great. 2 Premier League ones, and I think it would be really nice to see Chelsea kind of have a stability with Sanchez and 2 centre-halves. It would be a really nice spine because Caicedo plays pretty much all the time and the likes of Enzo does as well. Although he has come out today and said he's got a problem with his knee and he's going through a lot of pain. So he won't be going to the Argentina international games, which is good for us, but equally it sounds like he's in quite a lot of discomfort. And he says he needs 2 weeks really to ease the pain. And let's hope it's not anything more than that, because I actually think Enzo's in a really good run of form and I've really enjoyed his performances of late. So I would hate to see him out for a longer period because of a contusion on his knee. So fingers crossed he can be available for our next game against Burnley. And if it's not Burnley, let's hope he's fit for the Barcelona and Arsenal games after that. I did mention we had Arsenal next. I was completely wrong. It is Burnley away. So my apologies for that. And Chris will go through our upcoming fixtures, our next 7 fixtures, which he showed me earlier on, which are quite interesting games. I've given my points tally, but I think we can get out of them. I think Chris may have a different opinion, I don't know. But I see some of those games, like Everton at home, as quite a good game for us. I think Leeds away is quite a good game for us. Bournemouth's in there, which can be tricky for us away. So yeah, there's some mixed games, obviously alongside Arsenal and what have you as well. And there's Champions League games against Barcelona and Atlanta as well. So yeah, there's a few good games, I would say, on the horizon for Chelsea. And hopefully, after we have this international break, there's no more injuries and we can come back with actually some players coming back to us, as in Palmer and Badiashile, and the squad can start to get a little bit more harmonious, because Delap's back, as we know. Fingers crossed Enzo's okay. And just lastly, even though I've kind of moaned about Gusto in the past, I am actually starting to see some good performances from him, which is keeping Reece James now and again off the field, which is allowing him to play a lot more games, which has been really, really good for us, because with him in the side, we are tremendous. So, yeah, it's been it's actually been a very good, I'd say, 6 weeks for Chelsea. They've had a lot of wins, the occasional poor result, as in Sunderland, and a slight disappointing result against Karabakh in the Champions League. But either side of those, there's been some very good results in the Champions League, plus wins like Forest away, Spurs away, etc. So we can't be too disheartened with a start. We're second in the league. We're likely to go third if Man City win tonight. But I think overall, we should be very happy where we are. And going into this international break, if you said we were going to be second or third, I think we'd have been very, very happy. But over to you, Chris, to round us out for this podcast. I would just like to say that, again, from Chris and I, we are so chuffed and so moved by how many people are now listening to us. It's been a real jump in listeners in the last, I'd say, 6 months. We've really enjoyed the feedback, the questions, the emails, everything that's come into us has been really, really nice to see. And the way we can talk to everybody via email, via Instagram, via the podcast has been truly remarkable. And we really do appreciate all the love that everyone sent us with what we're doing and how we're doing it. And Chris will mention this, but I just want to say from myself, we are going to have a break for the first week of the international window, because we've got some stuff to do and some things to catch up on. But if you have any questions, please send them into the email address, which Chris knows off by heart. I don't right this moment in time, or via Instagram. And please get in touch and ask us anything you like. We'll try and answer them in a joint conversation together over Zoom or something like that before we come back, before the Burnley game. So yeah, thanks again, guys. Appreciate the love, and we'll see you on the other side.
The email address is hello@1905podcast.com, and our Instagram is 1905podcast. So yeah, as Joe says, we would love to have any questions for our international break special, or just to hear from you anyway and say hi. This is probably where I should also ask you to give us a 5-star review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, which takes about 3 seconds to do, but really, really helps us. So yeah, thank you. Liverpool lost. They are struggling, aren't they? They have a really funny record this season. Basically won 5, lost 6, I think it is now. And yeah, funny watching them on their decline. I really felt in the summer, when all the rumours were about Van Dijk and Salah leaving, or I guess it was towards the end of last season, wasn't it? I really felt that they should leave. I'm quite big on players leaving at the right time, and obviously they are Liverpool legends. And to be fair, probably Premier League legends will be looked back in time. I just felt leave at the top for both of them. And they've stuck around, and I just think they just don't have that edge that they had last season, the two of them, which, let's be fair, they were so important to what Liverpool did. Obviously, Liverpool were brilliant, but really those two players were massive for them, and Liverpool have spent so much money. And I don't know. I think with those two being there, they're always going to play, and I just think they're not the team they were. So I always felt that City would be, well, they were my pick for the title this year, to be fair. So I feel that if there is a team to probably challenge Arsenal for the title, I think it would be City. And if you're an Arsenal fan, they're probably the last team you would want challenging you, because we know if they get on one of those Pep runs that they can do, if they can get Rodri back playing to his best and keep Haaland fit, then yeah, they're not the team you want breathing down your necks, are they? And as long as Chelsea can stick in the conversation, that's what we said at the start of the season, goal for this season, be around it, be in and around it in March, April time, and don't be going into the last 2-3 games desperate to try and get top 4 or top 5 like we were last season. I think if we can do that this year, that would be a massive step in the right direction for me, and then go and win a trophy. But early days, the league table is as tight as I can remember it, as I mentioned earlier. At this point in the season, it's almost bizarre, and Chelsea just have to keep a run going, I think, and keep making sure we're finding that consistency. We'll probably talk a little bit about the upcoming fixtures. Joe mentioned them earlier, but maybe in the international break pod we can can forecast ahead a little bit and see what we think's coming, because it's a really interesting group of fixtures coming up. I mentioned that I'd finish a little bit on talking about Estevão, and I wanted to. I think actually we mentioned it, Joe. I think we've got a really good group of wingers in the club now. In the fact they're all a little bit different, without having to change the way you play. They are if you're playing Gittins or Garnacho, they're quite different. Garnacho is a lot more direct in his running style, whereas Gittins a little bit more of a dribbler, isn't he? Close control, wants to sort of take people and nick shots. And I think on the right-hand side, Neto and Estevão, you've almost got like the senior figure, haven't you? And obviously, yes, Neto can play on the left as well. And Estevão, I think they're managing it actually really well. Before the game, I really wanted Estevão to start. And I think it's just one of those things as a fan that I just want to watch him play football. That's the biggest thing I can say, just first and foremost. But that said, I completely understand why he didn't start. And actually, I think Maresca and the management are managing him very well. He played obviously 90 minutes in midweek. The temptation would have certainly been to throw him in, but Neto had a rest. If he was back fit, which he was, play him, let Garnacho start, and obviously it played out in the right way. And I think they're probably tempted to throw him in a lot more than they are, but actually probably are just making sure they can keep him burning for the whole season, and surprising teams with him a little bit. Not that he is a surprise, but coming on against tired legs with half an hour to go is a pretty useful weapon, isn't he? And obviously the other clip that I saw watching stuff earlier was this amazing moment where he draws across 4 or 5 players in one move on the right hand side and then releases it to João Pedro, who's basically free in the middle. It was actually staggering when you watch it. We're quite used to very quickly already watching him get sort of doubled up on. But in this particular sequence, they had 4 men around him, and he still managed to pick the right pass and create a chance for Chelsea. You just wonder what teams are going to do when you've got him and Palmer up against them, because if you give either of them any space and time, it's going to be a big problem. And I always felt last season that Palmer had his dip, didn't he, after Christmas, and a lot of people talked about, I think he lost a bit of confidence. There might have been a bit of burnout, just the number of games he was playing. But I also think that teams were just putting so much attention on him, and I think he struggled a little bit to work out how to get around that. Almost the worst thing, I thought this at the time, almost the worst thing Palmer could have done was score 4 goals in that half against Brighton. And not that no one realised how good he was. I think it was extraterrestrial how good he was in that moment. And I think that teams just went, you can't let him have any time. So I think he took a little while to find his rhythm again, his groove. But I think the idea of what you do if you've got him and Estevão in the same team, and then, whoever the other sort of attacking winger is, basically, imagine you've got Estevão on the right, Palmer at the 10, and then on the left, any one of them is basically raw pace. It's kind of a really difficult challenge, isn't it, for the opposition? So that could be a lot of fun to watch. We basically got, I think I'm right in saying they've started one Premier League game together this season, which was Man United away. And we got to enjoy it for all the best of part of 3 minutes before obviously Sanchez got sent off and Estevão came off. So yeah, we are due that moment as fans to enjoy. And the thing I wanted to say about Estevão is, I think everyone's excited. We talked about him in the first podcast actually that we ever did. For those who have been here since then, thank you. Right at the start of summer, it was basically it was the day that it was announced that he'd signed. Obviously, it had been rumoured for ages. It was like the official announcement of Estevão to Chelsea. And we talked about him. I remember walking through the streets in the sunshine, just talking about this guy. And I'm not exaggerating to say it's the most I've ever watched of a player before he's joined Chelsea in terms of watching his games, clips. And obviously that was before it was announced. And then in the last year, I basically I'd watch highlights of every single Palmeiras game that he played in. Not long highlights, 3 or 4 minutes, watching all of his touches, that sort of stuff. Kind of geeking out on Estevão, really. And what I can say to you is, we haven't even seen the start of it yet in a Chelsea shirt. There's so much he can do. I think the stuff that we're all excited about, rightly so, and that Stamford Bridge is on its feet every time he gets the ball, is the way he takes on players, and it's just unbelievable. But honestly, the shot that this kid's got on his left foot, we've only seen it probably a couple of times where he's kind of flicked it onto his left and bent one towards the top corner. He can hit every kind of shot. Some of the goals he scored for Palmeiras, just blasting the ball. And obviously he scored a very good goal against Chelsea in the Club World Cup. I always get it wrong, on his right foot. But honestly, his shooting on both feet is unbelievable. Some of the goals he scored from long range were incredible. And there was a great moment last season. And you know what? I'll find the clip and I'll put it up on our Instagram during the international break of him scoring a last-minute free kick for Palmeiras in a huge game. Literally last minute, in injury time, I think it is. It's 1-1 in the game on the right-hand side. And it's not far off the Cole Palmer free kick against Brighton. And he just smashes in the top corner and you think, wow, you can do... I remember thinking at the time, oh, he can do that as well as everything else. I mean, his corner taking, by the way, obviously he had one to forget against Sunderland, which we've let him off for because it was horrendous. But generally, his corners are excellent as well, and his set pieces. He's taken set pieces for Brazil when he was playing for their national team. And I noticed that in the highlights in the last break. He can do everything. And yeah, honestly, we've not even seen the start of it. I didn't want to almost overhype him. Joe and I didn't in the summer, just because you didn't know how he would adapt to the Premier League, whether he'd bit the tempo yet. Since we've seen plenty of players come in, plenty of players at Chelsea and even more across the Premier League who have struggled to adapt. Maybe they'll never adapt. Sometimes they take a year or so. I mentioned Mo Salah earlier. Maybe there isn't a better example of a player who took time to adapt. But Estevão's come in, has hit the ground running, and you can just see that there is so much more to come, and it is going to be a lot of fun. And I wanted to mention one guy. We have mentioned him on the pod before, but my equivalent this year of Estevão, the kid that I'm watching play lots of highlights, watching a lot of his games, because he's joining us next summer, is Giovanni Quenda. And I'm not going to say he's an Estevão's level. I'm not going to overhype him, but all I will say is he is rated in the same sort of bracket as Estevão, and is already doing it in Champions League games for Sporting, and he is a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun, such an aggressive runner, such a great dribbler. His final ball is excellent, and I think Chelsea will be looking at what's happening with Estevão thinking, yeah, okay, we can probably give faith to this kid as well. And I think, again, he's 18. It's the talent coming through, and we give the club stick at times for some of the moves that we've maybe not made in the market, centre back and goalkeeper, that we'd like to see. But credit when it's due for picking up some of this young talent, because it is really, really quite something. And what I would say, if you're a Jamie Gittins, Pedro Garnacho, you're going to have to be at your absolute top of your game, or come the summer, Chelsea will undoubtedly kind of look to flip, I think, a winger potentially out for a quick profit if they think that Quenda's the real deal. So yeah, one to keep an eye on. We'll definitely come back to the conversation towards the end of the season. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, isn't it, this season, supporting Chelsea? It's been ups and downs already in the season, but it's been a fun season, I would say. You don't know what you're getting from week to week, but as Jay said, going into the international break, third as we are, the City have just demolished Liverpool, and yeah, we'd all have taken that, I think. So we will see you next time. Drop us a note if you want to say hi or ask us a question, and we'll see you very soon. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.
This podcast podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.